I guess that answers that now. Okay, so I want to thank everybody who got on. I know everybody has been busy. There have been lots of meetings on along. I am actually at the council office now because I just finished up a meeting, and I know Rosie is in another one. So for all of you that I see here, oh, Larry popped in and Miss Joyce. So there are quite a few people here. So I am going to turn it over and ask, and Catherine, I don't know who's taking the lead on this, but
I am.
Okay, if you will
Thank you.
introduce your people
Yes.
and explain to them what you have and why you are bringing it here first before you get into what it's going to be, whether you have to ask for a rezoning or what, so that they will know. And then go ahead and explain what it is and make sure that there are time for questions at the end. But make sure that they understand if you're asking for a rezoning, or if not, why, and that type of thing. I
Sure.
will turn it over now. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Council Lady. I'm Catherine Withers with Barge Design Solutions. I'm a planner. Jeff Cundiff is a civil engineer for this project. We also have Mark Maynard, who is the developer here. So I'll talk you through the application, and then Mark and Jeff and I will answer your questions. So as the council lady mentioned, we had reached out to her to let her know about this request because it was going to the Planning Commission. It's required, it's considered a minor change to an existing PUD, so there's no council action, but she requested that we defer going to the Planning Commission and come out and meet with the community to share the details of the plans. So we are happy to support her in that request and engage with her constituents, and want to be a good community partner as we move forward. So as I said, the purpose of this is a minor revision to an existing plan that we feel it works better with the topography and minimizes land disturbance from the previous version. So we are glad to share that. It is called I-24 Limited within the Century South Plan Unit Development. And it's got this number 188-84P-004. And that means it was approved back in 1984. It was the 188th planned unit development that year. So 84 was a long time ago. That was way before Council Lady Lee probably thought about running for council. And then it was later amended in 2003 when Tommy Bradley was the council person here. So we'll give you an overview of the developer, the tribute companies, and some of their work, talk about where the project's located, give you an overview of that existing plan and its entitlements, and then talk to you about the changes that are being proposed right now, and we'll have time for questions.
And Catherine, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm going to ask you, since you have several people on there with you, if you will have somebody to follow the questions in the chat, so that some of those you may want to answer as you're going through instead of waiting to the end. And I think the answer is yes, Tawana, but I'll let her refer to that.
Actually, hang on, I had the chat up a minute ago and now I've lost it.
The question was, had you ever worked in planning before?
Yes, I worked for the planning department for 15 years. I've been with Barge for 5 years. So, okay. All right, so the Tribute Companies is the developer, and they are an experienced mixed-use developer. We've enjoyed working with them. One of their charges to us was to minimize disturbance on the site and save as many trees as we could. So that's always a nice thing to hear. They have a individual approach to each development, and these are some examples of amenity spaces within their properties. So you can see the level of quality. They're also experienced not just in multifamily, but also in the commercial mixed use component. Here's an example where they've preserved a historic building, remodeled it, and then you can see that level of quality they bring to the amenity spaces. And then here is an example of commercial development and those amenity spaces within the development and the unique approach with the public art. So this is our project location. So Century Farms is on the north end of the site. I-24 comes down through the middle of this map. We have access on Old Franklin. So this white outline shows the larger planned unit development district. The hatched line is the project site within the center of it. October Woods here, Cane Ridge Farms. So, and access to Old Hickory Boulevard. So as I mentioned before, this is a planned unit development, and that's a zoning tool. It's an overlay district that has a plan that goes with it through that rezoning process. And it illustrates where the streets are supposed to go and where different building types, what the land uses are, where those building footprints go. So with this one, as I mentioned, there's that spine road that connects Old Franklin down to Old Hickory. There's a loop road in the middle of the development. So it is approved for 1,974 multifamily units across the site. This part of the development on the north end is currently in the land development process. So we're talking about here is this area within the dashed line, but across the development, this was the amount of development that's been approved since '84. So 1,974 units and 1 million square feet of non-residential uses. So you look closer in our development parcel. So the water tank is up here at the top of the hill. The spine road would come through here. There's 512,000 square feet of office approved, and then apartments and townhouses, 964 that are already, they're approved on this site. So that's the plan that's out there today. So the revision that's being submitted right now, it keeps the same number of multifamily units. It just moves things around on the site. So where the office was lining both sides of the road, now it's between the new spine road and the interstate. And then the townhouses and apartments are in a more compact form so that more of the hillside and the tree perimeter is preserved. And Jeff, I think you had some statistics about that.
Yeah, I do. With the revised cluster plan, we were actually able to save roughly 40 acres in this preliminary design of additional woods that previously in the entitled plan we would not have been doing. So we were excited about that opportunity, and we're also trying to preserve the ones that are on the top of the hills, so that we're trying to protect those view sheds from the neighboring properties. And I see that Tawana here, you've mentioned a 17-foot oak tree, and I would love to learn more about that. You know, as we get into it, and we will definitely dive into your questions here as at the end of Catherine's presentation. So.
Okay, and so since the approved residential units and office square footage are the same, and then the access points have remained the same, then the planning department has deemed this to be a minor revision to the existing plan. So that's why it's just requires planning commission approval and wouldn't go back before council. So, and then how the plans stack up side by side, you can see the difference, how that road network stays the same, but you can see where before there were units up the hillside to the water tank, all that remains undisturbed today. So So let's see, I think, so we can go to questions now. So Tawana's got quite a few. Let me see if I can.
I apologize. It works better if I type them out as I'm thinking of them,
Yeah,
and then
no,
you
that's
also
great.
can save them. If you don't have the answers, you can have them in writing.
All right. So Jeff, you might have been involved in looking at, did we find evidence of a slave cemetery?
We definitely have evidence of some cemeteries on site. Is this a marked cemetery, Tawana, or is this one that you're just aware of?
There's two of them. The small one, the Hill Cemetery, is the one that's got the fence around it right on the old roadway on the left.
Right.
And then the Pasquette or Pasquette Cemetery is the one that has the white section and the slave section. It's not particularly marked. It is on, I believe it's on the Davidson County Cemetery Survey. Somebody said after the fact that it wasn't there anymore, but it is very much there. It's huge. There's probably 60 graves in it, if not more. It could be just on the southern edge of the part that you have on the screen right now, because it feels like it's a little closer to Old Hickory Boulevard. It's kind of hard to tell when you're on foot, you know.
Sure.
But it needs to be maintained. It's a really good time to look at it because it has such old daffodils spread in there, and of course it's full of vinca. It really stands out. It's beautiful. So I would personally love to see that be the centerpiece for some sort of park area and keep development away from that. And then I also would like to go back to the map you had and hope that you know about the streams. Those streams down in there haven't been disturbed for many years, and they have so many crayfish. They're just full of stuff, and they are crystal clear, and they are just in great shape. And I believe this property probably has to straddle the watershed, one going towards Collins Creek and the other going towards Hurricane Creek. So it's a really unique place. And then there's the oak tree that's 17 foot around, just absolutely massive. You can see it from the interstate. There's a number of other quite large trees back in there. So just like to hear more about the answers to those questions, and particularly how many stories these apartments are going to be.
The apartments, I think maximum of 4 stories. Wait, I'm sorry, that's the office building. I'm sorry.
While she's looking that up, I'll go ahead and address some of the other stuff. So I mean, what we have identified those streams, and we've laid this site out to minimize any impacts. So basically, if you're looking at this plan here, you see kind of this long finger in between the middle of this development. Really, we're staying completely off of that water body there, Tawana, and then we're just having one crossing that's required to get this road connection in over here to the right side, and on the other parcel, which was required as part of the original PUD. So we've done a good job of trying to lay this thing out to minimize our impacts. There is one kind of actually bad eroded area close to the interstate. If you're familiar with it, it's almost like a major gully that is
down closer to Old Hickory Boulevard on that end.
No, it's literally right along parallel to the interstate under this office parcel. And so that one is not a nice feature that we would be trying to fix that solution with that development. But all the other streams and wetlands, we're working around those. We will have some minor impacts, but our goal is to minimize those only to what's required to support the development.
Do you know where the pond is? I'm sorry.
That's okay. Go ahead, Tawana. I just want to let them know Joe has had his hand up for a while. He had a question as well.
Okay.
Go ahead, Joe. I
Please
can
let
talk
her
on that.
finish. I'm in no hurry.
So I'll just add this and then I'll shut up for a second. I apologize. I love this property. I would like to know if you know where the pond is and whether that's being preserved. And there's also a huge ridge of cane, the cane that Cane Ridge is named for in there. I hope that's being protected. And you're talking about the wetlands. There are at least 2 polywog ponds, if you know what those are, that are absolutely just full in the springtime of those. And I haven't seen that anywhere else in a long, long time. So I just hope you're catching all of that. Sorry.
We
Go ahead.
are. Yeah, I was just gonna say, we did go out and we did do, hydraulic determination on this property and walked it all and identified these features before we started laying out this revised site plan. With the intent of really trying to minimize our disturbances to those features. So. And I am aware of the crayfish, and we are kind of on the dividing line. The majority of this property flows towards the west, towards Cane Ridge Road, and a small portion of it, basically kind of, you got the main road that runs north and south. And, roughly there is kind of a dividing line that flows east versus towards the west. So there's another comment in here about a bridge to Mill Ridge Park. Are you envisioning a bridge over the interstate? Because
Yes, we were told early on that it was possible to simply set down a pedestrian bridge and that it kind of was not really expensive to do that kind of bridge, and that because there's the bluff area on each side of the interstate that would connect your site, your residents, to the new Mill Ridge Park without having to get out Old Duke Boulevard. And it would also allow for some trails to connect to the old Franklin Road development that is trying to get, further connected down towards the Greenway. It would be an amazing thing to look at.
Yeah, I will say, whenever we worked on the neighboring development, the greenways that were planned and the multi-use paths that were just put in with the diverging diamond interchange. That's like a 14-foot wide multi-use path that this will ultimately connect to. And that was developed and we actually worked with Metro Parks to make sure we could get across the interstate there at exit 60 and then work your way back over to the park. So we did lay all that out with them to ensure that we could provide connectivity through this whole facility and make sure people could get from one side of the interstate to the other. And the sidewalks and everything that would be put in with this development will ultimately connect to all that infrastructure that's in place.
Joe?
Y'all are going to have to forgive me. I'm not very familiar with this particular area, this site. So this is I-24, and we're headed. Which side of the road is this site on? Which is this?
South side, opposite of the Global Mall of I-24.
So it's just below
Okay.
Century Farms.
Yeah, that little white box right there where her hand is the CHS building.
Okay. All right. And how many multifamily units did you say was going in here?
964.
Okay, 964, and you had 512,000 of office space.
Right.
Yes, sir. And those entitlements are exactly what it's currently entitled for. We are not asking for anything more than what exists today.
Yeah, I'm just trying to take notes and make sure I got it straight. I'm not.
Yeah, I just want to make sure you understood that.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. We were very intentional. We did not want to, try to increase the density.
And it's a mix of townhouses and apartments.
Thank you. I appreciate the information, guys.
Are all of the townhouses owner and not rent?
That's not been determined at this time. I think that as it moves into development, it'll depend on, what the market's doing at the time.
I think there's some
So-
other questions.
Y'all have to go back to planning for the amendment, is that right?
It's not an amendment, it's considered a revision.
Do you have to go to planning for the revision?
Yes,
And so there is the opportunity for the community to provide feedback at that point, right?
yes.
So could we get some things in writing before you go to that point so that we don't fear promises that are being made not being fulfilled? And please don't take that as a personal thing, but you know, we often get told things and that doesn't end up being what happens. So all these things that I can't see the guy's name at the bottom for some reason, but all of the things y'all are saying sound great. It almost sounds like you've read through the Cane Ridge Resource Declaration and are intentionally checking all the boxes, which is fantastic. But if you put it in writing, then we know it's really going to happen. So I would love to see it added in writing to the plan very specifically about all of these things we've discussed. There's one thing that Councilwoman Lee and I often disagree about, and that's apartments. And I would say that on this one, where you've gotten the apartments in and pulled them away from the boundaries and increased the green space, is that's the thing that made me personally change my mind about apartments. And the reason I asked about how many stories is if for instance, they're only 2 stories and they can be 3 and save even more green space, y'all get the same number of units. That's something that I would certainly support. But all these things you've mentioned, could we get them in writing on the actual plan that's being filed?
Well, the things we mentioned are in the plan.
All these specific things about the oak tree and the cemetery and all
Oh,
that?
I'm sorry. I thought the plan we present, okay. We have
Yeah,
to
no,
analyze the things you've mentioned to make sure we can do them.
well, I know you can save cemeteries. I know you can save a
Right.
big oak tree. I mean, it's all doable. We haven't asked for anything that's not doable. And y'all have already articulated that you even know about the endangered species. There's a salamander too, whose name I'm drawing a blank on. It might be streamside salamander. That's what it is. So there are some really important features in there. And one of the things I mentioned in the chat, 900 apartments with chemicals getting dumped. Man, there really needs to be some stuff in writing for the businesses and the residential area to not use things that end up contaminating the water. Wouldn't it suck to do a good job staying away from the water with the building, but have chemicals leach in there that kills off everything anyway? So I'd like to hear more about that and see something in writing, and about how all of this is, it's just such a sensitive area. And are you the only one? Is it Josh? Why can't I see your name? What's your name in the black vest?
Jeff.
Oh, it's Jeff Cundiff.
Yeah,
Yes, ma'am.
you're the only one who's physically walked the property
No,
that's
we've
on
had,
this call tonight,
yeah, the environmentalists
on the
are
call
not
tonight.
on the call. Well, yeah, I guess it would be me and Mark. There has our environmental folks and our surveyors that have walked the property are not on this call tonight.
So you and Mark might have experienced then that once you get down into that bottom where the creek is, you can't even hear the interstate, which is amazing. You're so close to it. And Councilwoman Lee can hear the interstate better from her home than you can hear it right adjacent to it once you get down in that bottom. This is a thick, really nice area. It doesn't even have invasive honeysuckle back in the woods. So I'm begging y'all to put things in writing. I'm begging Councilwoman Lee to make sure things are in writing before this moves to planning in a way that ensures these things are going to occur, because this is a fantastic property. And if y'all haven't seen the huge cemetery, I would love to take you back there. I also want to make sure that y'all are in touch with Mr. Hill, because he used to go maintain his family's cemetery, and y'all changed the locks and he can't get back there now to do it.
It actually might be a really good thing if you use Tawana as a resource, if you want to go back there and have her show you some of those things again. She's very knowledgeable about all of that. And I will say, because sometimes you may say, well, we have said that, well, we need to put something in writing. There are some other things that have gone up in that, off of that Cane Ridge, Franklin Road area, where we were told that they wouldn't disturb certain things. Yet when those folks that are actually driving the vehicles that push things down, then push trees and things down next to barns and areas that were historic and messed up the land around there. So that's just another piece of making sure, since it doesn't have to come through planning again, since it doesn't have to come through the council again, that you are very aware of those things, and it's just as important to you as it is to the community to preserve those things, so that the folks that are in that area will have a special, decent way of life because of that type of landscape and things back there. So I would suggest that if you would, because she's very knowledgeable, and I hear that you have talked to Parks. I don't know if you talked to the historical folks. It's always good to check with them when you're going to do something in the area too. But I would suggest that maybe if she's able, you do use Tawana as kind of a guide to point out some more specific things that maybe your folks didn't know, because they're looking, but they're not right there in that area all the time.
That would be great, and we would certainly welcome walking the property with Tawana. I walked the property with Jeff fairly early on in the process, and I agree with you. It is a very beautiful property, and that is really why we tasked the engineers with preserving as much open space as possible. So I 100% agree with you. It's a spectacular property, and we hope to be good stewards of it.
Will y'all be the same group who is doing the more southern parcel?
We are not. That will be a separate group.
So that also kind of is an issue. If y'all do a good job on your part, how we then know that the adjacent parcel is also going to do a good job. I hope y'all realize that, like for Mr. Benton and myself and the councilwoman too, for those of us who live west of this property, your property is the buffer for all of the noise and everything. This is going to drastically affect our quality of life, because you know how sound travels in a funnel, and a lot of that interstate noise is going to be funneled now. I actually kind of hope that the office buildings are all a little taller, because that will sort of create a wall to bounce that sound off of, instead of it coming over into the community so much. And I didn't hear y'all answer about the stand of cane. Do y'all know about that?
I think that's something you'll need to show us, Tawana.
It's it's almost between the water tower and the interstate. And if you're standing just below the water tower and look down the hill, and I believe it's off to the left, you think for a second you're looking at a big body of water, and as you get closer to it, you realize it's the leaves of the native cane catching the blue of the sky, because that stuff stays green all winter.
Yeah, we did see that, Mark, when we were up there. I remember seeing that. No, you're right. Yeah, so that would be an area that if it's up near the water tower, we're not getting anywhere close to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but is it between the water tower and the interstate?
Yes.
It might be on the adjacent property.
Right, and that would be their second phase.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the plans I've seen of theirs don't get next to the water tower either.
I do have that in
Okay.
here.
Yeah.
And I mean, one of the aspects of our revision is that we're staying further off that water tower on our side. So that would be a benefit of what we're proposing versus the original plan.
Mhm.
How many stories again on the apartments? I still don't remember seeing that answer.
It's 3.
Thank you.
And I'll address your chemical comment. We will be providing water quality throughout this entire development through a series of either, bioretention areas that will capture the water and filter it through special engineered media, or mechanical BMPs that actually have engineered filters in them that take out chemicals and particulates and things of that nature. So we will 100% be doing that. That's not something that we even have to agree to. That is a mandate from Metro that we do that. So.
I'm talking about after the project is built. I'm
Yeah,
talking
no,
about for
those
the-
are permanent. Those are permanent BMPs, best management practices for stormwater quality that will be in place. That have to be. They actually have a declaration of restrictive covenants that will be recorded with this property that requires them to be maintained on a regular basis. And if they're not, Metro can come in and maintain them, and then hit up the developer for that cost.
So those restrictive covenants will limit the apartment complex management maintenance from using chemicals that would be harmful?
I don't know. It doesn't specify what they can and can't use with respect to chemicals, but it does cover the water quality features that are in place to filter all the water that leaves this site. So.
I hear what you're saying, but it's not addressing what I'm asking. So I would like to see that in there as well, where it specifically prohibits chemicals that are known to be pesticides that will get in water, pesticides and chemicals that can harm the water quality. Because every landscaping company that comes through does that, and Mr. Benton, I thought had a couple of questions too.
Yeah, when I brought up the plan, it of course borders my property, more the left-hand side of the property, Mr. Gray, and then Mr. Smalls as well. One of my concerns is what's going to be done on that edge line where we're not staring at a big mound of dirt, or we're not, what is
On this
being
edge.
done. Yeah, on the bottom, I'm sorry, I'm not actually looking at the screen. Yeah, it's 3 different
Down here.
properties along Cane Ridge. There may even be more. Yeah, so it's the bottom right. Yes,
On this
that whole
perimeter.
area there. Now, my property, essentially, when looking at this, my property is in the corner where the 3 little buildings are going to be. So that whole area is going to be completely beside my property. And then as you go down that path, of course, it's going to be more open for Bill and Mr. Small as well. But seeing the other Century Farm developments, we're just seeing big hills built next to people's property. What is that going to look like for us?
Yeah, I'm looking at that right now. Just trying to give you an idea. So,
Well, and I was also curious how much distance,
yeah,
between your building and
so
my property.
between the building and the property line right there is approximately 285 feet. So it's close to a football field. And then from the parking lot to the property line is roughly 210 feet. And that's kind of in the tightest spot. And then as you get, further up towards the right side there, the parking lot is 330 feet. And the building is 410 feet from the property
Mhm.
line. Put it into perspective.
Okay. And I know
There's
there's,
kinda-
there's,
And there's kind
I'm
of
sorry,
a
go ahead.
valley along the property line between the two, between your property and this property. So
yeah,
they're probably sitting roughly at the same elevation.
okay. And that, yeah, that was one of the other questions I had, is that is more of a hill on the other side of my property. So would that be leveled more, or are you going to build on top of that hill?
I'm looking, let's see. I mean, we're relatively close to natural grade. I mean, that was pretty much our intent. We were trying to minimize disturbance, with this whole development. So we were trying to stay as close to natural grade as possible. So we could limit the cut and fill slopes, adjacent to each one. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Where are the sewers going to be?
The sewer discharges to the west.
So is it going to use one of those stream beds, or is it running all the way to Old Franklin, or?
It will not be in a stream. They would basically follow the drainage path, but it would not be within the buffers of the stream.
Well, that's one of the things we got really burned on over at Century Farms. They said, oh, we won't bother Collins Creek. We will stay 50 feet either side of it. And then months later, oh, I'm so sorry. We have to put the sewer line in the lowest part, which happens to be 6 foot from the creek. Our bad. So some of that kind of stuff, when you, I know you probably have to use gravity fed and you don't have a choice about that, but please be open and upfront about it at this point, so we don't feel like we've been fooled. Can you talk a little about that, please?
Yeah, I mean, the intent right now, the way that we've kind of laid it out is parallel to the buffer. So we would be protecting the stream buffers, and then we'd be running parallel to that on the outside.
How far from it?
I mean, that level of detail really hasn't been fleshed out yet because we haven't designed it. But that is where Metro is requiring us to put it, is in that vicinity. So
Where would that come out on Cane Ridge Road at?
that comes out, well, basically adjacent to where this creek crossing is.
Have y'all talked to those property owners down there? They're both brand new property owners.
There have, and I don't know if anybody else on this call has any more information on that, but yes, there has been conversations with the property owner.
Because one of them just put in a brand new fence, just did it, like finished it maybe 3 weeks ago. That entire area down there also floods. That's one of the places that we're having trouble as we get more rain with the water coming up over Cane Ridge Road. There's 3 places now, but one of them is there at that creek. And I assume that, and this is why we kind of get harmed in the long run, but the Drapac group will be running their sewer down from the other direction. So it's going to get disturbed from both directions. And when y'all, when you clear stuff and blast to put in sewers, it also makes a different path for water, and more of it's going to collect down there. So whatever way you can talk about that right now would be appreciated.
With respect to the sanitary sewer, or are you talking about storm sewer? I mean, storm sewer, we're going to be doing, we'll be managing all of our stormwater on site. So, I mean, we'll have detention ponds that will be designed to capture and hold the 100-year storm event and detain it at the same rate it does today. So, but
I'm sorry, I'm talking about the poop sewers.
Well, those are closed systems, so they should not have any impact on flooding.
it's the vegetation removal and stuff. I mean, they have to be put in the ground. So that's what I'm asking about. And then, but you bring up another thing, the detention and retention ponds. Maybe we can come back to that. But I'm talking about when the ground is disturbed to put those in. It changes everything. It changes. There's a cave just off of that creek down there close to Cane Ridge Road. Actually, there's 3 caves right there. So, you know, you start blasting to put in sewers and stuff, it changes things. The detention and retention ponds does bring up another issue, though. Those are often offered as you know, they're absolutely going to control all of the runoff that the ground previously would have allowed to permeate down through the ground, and it doesn't hold out to be true actually on the ground when you're looking at it. Are there any options for doing some permeable paving in some of these areas so that it lessens, because this is going to require a lot of asphalt parking areas and roadways and stuff?
Yeah, all that will be considered in the final design. We'll be evaluating pervious pavers, fire retention, above ground storm systems, below ground. But yeah, we'll be thoroughly vetting all those. And I would imagine at the end of the day, there's going to be some combination of all that, you know, when it's all said and done. And it'll really depend on what the subsurface conditions are and where we're at. You know, are we able to perk? Are we able to put that water back in the ground, or are we sitting on bedrock? If we're sitting on bedrock, you know, we're less limited on how much water we can infiltrate, and we'll be handling those with storm pumps. So mitigate that.
Let me just say a couple more things and I'm going to truly shut up. Councilwoman Lee, because we have those caves underground, you know, that water does filtrate down through that ground in a trickle, and those underground reservoirs stay wet. Even in August, they're wet. And every time we disturb above ground, even when they do the specs, the ponds that are required by law, it still affects how much water runs over the surface of the ground before it gets to those. And as you know, we're having more and more flooding in Cane Ridge. And additionally, we've got all these other things that, in my opinion, always need to be in writing. If we're fair to every developer, then we're going to say to every developer, we want these things in writing. And I would like to see all of these things enumerated in a way that they're actually attached to this plan before it goes to the Planning Commission. I don't know when that meeting is set for. I think I heard March, but I would ask that we have February 10th. Okay, I would ask that we either move that meeting later or do something so that the community has the opportunity to hear all these things we've brought up be in writing on a document before not offering any pushback at the Planning Commission.
If it is coming to the Planning Commission on the 10th, I guess it just depends on how fast that they can get all of that together. Because we can send it out once the information is gathered and they have said where it's going to go. We can send that out in an email. And I was trying to look to see when our next, I don't believe I have another community meeting before the 10th. No, that's January. We're talking about February. Hold on. There is actually a community meeting on February the 3rd, which is talking about something else. But if they have all of that information together and we've already sent it out in an email, and there is something that we can, like in just 10 minutes, present it to the group to see if that suffices or not, and then take it back so we don't cut time from the other meeting, we could do that if that helps.
Well, we definitely want to do something with more notice so that more people have an opportunity. And we need to make sure the new neighbors, I think there's only one abutting neighbor here. So we need to make sure that more of them are included. You know, there's that whole other subdivision there off of Cane Springs, and I don't think any of them are here. I think everybody's going to be appreciative of the buffers and whatnot. I also think it's possible that there was some stuff that just couldn't be touched, and so that might have driven the changes a little bit. Either way, it works out for us, but yeah, I'd definitely like to hear more. I would love to see if there's an opportunity for even more tweaking and leave a little more green and make sure it's in writing to have even larger stream buffers, not just 20 feet, not just, 50 feet really is not enough. So
Looks like Mr. Benton asked when the proposed project start date is and the completion date. So I guess, so at this point we'd be projecting. So Jeff, I guess, what's the timeline? We'd have to get through our more
Yeah.
in-depth grading plans and final planned unit development before any dirt's moved.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably, or I would assume like fall into the year for the first shovel to go on the ground, and assuming everything moves through the process. And completion date, I mean, I think we've got roughly 4 phases of development, Mark. So I'm gonna assume you're 18 months a phase, and please correct me if I'm wrong. And I know that's all subject to the market conditions. So
Yeah, I think it's going to be a 10-year project.
10 years, okay.
It sounds like what I am hearing, because I'm trying to look at my schedule as well. And there are not a lot of spaces for community meetings. Seems like what I'm hearing is asking you all to consider deferring it another meeting, so that we can get all of this stuff straightened out, and then you can present it back to the community and explain how you have made the changes to the community. Is that something that you all think you could do?
I guess my thought with respect to that is, I believe we're addressing all of the concerns that have been raised with this current plan. And I'm not sure if there would necessarily even be a change to the design, because I feel like we have addressed those concerns.
Yeah, I don't think they're talking about to the design. I think what they're talking about are the things that you all agreed to look at, and without being specific, and if you're going to walk through with Tawana, like the different trees and those type of things that you all said, okay, yeah, we're not going to touch. We're not going to touch that. We're going to look at that. I think what I was hearing is that they kind of want that kind of stuff someplace in writing, because not because of you all, but because they have been burned on that before, and that there's some folks on this call that aren't actually right there next door that should be on the call. And I understand you all don't have anything to do with that. They could have been on that. They could have looked at when we were having a meeting and be on that like everybody else. But I think it just gives a little more time to get stuff together, and then you can present or just talk about when you did the walkthrough, what you saw. And so you have more knowledgeable about like where the graveyard is, and you're not going to go there, and just a little more, not any type of change to actually what you have written up here.
No, and I really think that's in the plan already. We've got our limits of disturbance established. It's actually part of the documents that were submitted and reflected here. So I guess personally, I feel like we've addressed everything. So
there are several more little things that we have gotten in writing with other developers that we would like to see here. They're pretty simple, common sense things, and I'm trying to not take more of the time on this call, but it's things like having the contact person for the blasting company posted at every entrance, having a regular policing of the site for trash so that trash doesn't get buried. That's another thing that's happened up there on Century Farms, drives me crazy. Everybody throws their lunch and their plastic bottles down, and they're just like, oh, well, we're gonna be burying they plant a garden in their backyard and they keep digging up plastic bottles. So there's all kinds of little things that we want to get in writing. All of the things are born from previous issues that occurred. They're all reasonable in our estimation. For instance, the thing I put in chat about regular community updates, so that there's an opportunity for the community to say, hey, Jeff, we're having an issue. Can you correct this? As the project moves forward, especially since you just said it's going to take a decade. Holy smokes, if we don't have a process in place for a decade of listening to this, because we'll listen to the backup beep, beep, beeping and the blasting for that whole decade, you know. Our roads are getting absolutely trashed by the dump trucks, just destroyed. Our trees that line like Old Hickory Boulevard right by the council lady's house are getting banged up all the time because we've got too many big trucks. We haven't even talked about Old Hickory Boulevard. How in the heck is this road going to exit between Gilroy Church and the interstate onto Old Hickory Boulevard and be safe? You can't possibly put another traffic light right there. So there's still a lot of stuff really in my mind that needs to be covered a little bit, covered a lot. I would love to.
Tawana, you just named some things that you didn't talk to them about before.
That's
Can
right.
you make a list of those things so that I can get and send those to me so that I can get them to them? Because there may be some things that they hadn't thought about.
Yeah, it's all those things that are in the Cane Ridge Community Resource Declaration and the Cane Ridge Standards. And yes, if we can do another
If you could
maybe
just
we
send
can.
me a list, if you could just send me the list of the things that you were talking about, just in a list of that. Now, I think I do agree. I think we need to have another meeting or something too. But I'm saying if you could just send me not a whole, I don't want anything else except a list of the things that you were talking about so that we can make sure that those things are, that they've got that and that's attended to.
Okay, just being mindful, there are things I didn't yet list because of time's sake.
Tawana, are you available to meet next week?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Depends on when it is, but yes.
Sure. Well, I could be flexible and I would love to meet you at the site and walk it with you. And, we'll, the things that you're listing all sound extremely reasonable. We are not going to disturb a cemetery. I'm fine putting that in writing. We're not going to do that.
But you got to know where it is to not disturb it.
No, I agree. And one of them, at least one of them is identified on the survey, but the second one you mentioned, I definitely want to see for sure. I'm hoping it's not on the property because it should have been identified on the survey. But we, of course, will not disturb it regardless. Secondly, this tree, I really want to see it. I did see a lot of beautiful trees, and that's why we're trying to preserve as many as possible. So I want to walk the site with you and incorporate these comments into our plan because most of them sound, if not all of them, sound like things we can do.
We will have to pick a good weather opportunity, and I may not be able to do as much walking as I used to. I don't know, you may not know it, but I had a really serious health issue 6 months and 3 weeks ago that I'm still recovering from. So if we can pick a day that is warmish and plenty of time so that I can pause when I need to, I would love to. It will be my first big walk since my event on July 14th. So.
Okay, I certainly understand. And I'm happy to accommodate your schedule, and just if you just let me know when works best for you, I will do my best to be there. And I'm actually checking, I'm trying to check the weather forecast right now on my phone actually. So hopefully we can carve out a time here next week. Looks like the weather on Monday is probably going to be the best bet.
I'm in therapy every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'll be at Vanderbilt from 8 a.m. till about 2 p.m.
It looks like there's an 80% chance of rain on Tuesday and on Wednesday. And then Friday. So you said Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you can't do?
Yeah, I have therapy every Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
We could do a weekend if that works better.
Actually, it would. Now, Sunday, we've planned to do some cleanup at the community club. So I can't do it this Sunday, but next Saturday or Sunday, if we plan it then, let's see. Is that gonna be the 5th already? Holy smokes.
Mhm.
Yes, ma'am, that would be Saturday the 5th. And it looks like it'll be a little chilly, but it should be clear, at least as of now, for whatever that's worth.
How little chilly.
A high of 38, low of 19. That's what they,
Woo!
so it's up to you. I would love to be there, and and if it works better, I can walk out there, and you can just kind of give me a roadmap. I can meet you at a coffee shop or your house, wherever is most convenient for you, and you can map it out. I can walk it. I can FaceTime you, and I can show you the tree that I'm looking at.
Let's try to do some walking.
On Tuesday, it looks, mine's saying 60 degrees and partly cloudy. No rain.
You know what? Maybe my weather app is broken. I don't know.
I mean,
Okay, well, that sounds a lot better than what I was looking at.
Yeah,
I must have been picking up the wrong zip code. For Monday, what were you seeing?
well, Monday is not good for Tawana, but Tuesday,
Tuesday.
the temperature says 59 and partly cloudy, 0% chance of rain.
Oh, all right, let's do
That
that.
sounds amazing.
All right, let's do that. Tuesday works great. I'll you tell me what works best for you.
10, 9. I don't know where you live or like how long it'll take you to get over here. I mean, the later,
It's fine.
the warmer.
I can accommodate your schedule, so I'll be there at 10 o'clock. And we can meet, probably the best place to meet.
The community club.
Okay, well, I'll see you there.
What's your phone number?
910. Well, actually, do you mind if I email it to you?
Sure, sorry. Or direct message it. Your name is Mark?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure I can get your contact info and I can just provide you.
Mine is 615-497-2981.
Would you mind if I get in on that walk, Tawana?
Absolutely. I think as many people as want to see it, it'll be helpful for discussion purposes.
Yeah.
I would tell you to wear something that doesn't catch the blackberry vines.
Okay.
So 497-2981, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'll shoot you a text.
And we're shooting for next Tuesday, somewhere around 9 or 10.
Tuesday the 1st at 10 a.m. is what I've got.
Okay.
Right?
Yes, ma'am.
And then
I'll see you then.
Council Lady Lee, are we still okay for discussion on, I think you said the 3rd? What day did you say?
Oh, yeah, I was saying that's my next community meeting. So that if they have stuff all together that won't take more than about 5 or 10 minutes, I would let them scooch in on that meeting, but that's a big community meeting on the 3rd.
It'll take more than 10 minutes.
Then we would have to probably make up our own one then.
Okay.
Right
What's
now, I don't see where that might be.
What's the planning commission date again? February 10th?
Mhm.
That's why I was asking if they could defer it again, because there's nothing right up there except for that before the 10th that we could do it, not with any time.
Can y'all defer it another month and give us time to get things worked out so we don't have any contention at planning?
Do you think there's any way we can, I mean, if we're meeting next week, I mean, do you think there's a way we can get all this together and make that meeting in time? Because we'd really appreciate being able to move forward on this.
the problem for us is that y'all aren't the only development. I actually have another Zoom meeting going on my phone right now, trying to listen in on that one as well. And there's 10 other projects. I mean, there's, as you know, there's development all over Cane Ridge. Y'all already know that. It's
And
going
not
to be
only
hard
that,
for us to get.
but as we're talking about community meetings, there are a lot of things that are already scheduled. And I know you may not want to hear this, but in a real world, real job, I can't have community meetings every day because I also have scheduled work items that are already down. So.
I personally think it needs to be deferred for one meeting and allow time to get all of this done. And I think that would let us get it done. And I think we could get a small working group together to meet before the meeting and get things hashed out. I don't see how we could squeeze another community meeting in that quickly. There's too many others that people are trying to be at. They're talking about Century Farms on the other call. They get talked about a lot.
And I'm looking at my schedule, and there's something that I have at 3 o'clock, but the closest date that I have that I could even squeeze in a community meeting would be on the 16th. And I'm not sure what the legislature is going to be doing because I'm also lobbying on the state level. So if they have a afternoon meeting, and I think Senate Ed meets like 3 o'clock or something like that. So
I already have a community meeting at 6:30 that night on the 16th. And we have to let people have time to get home and have dinner.
So other than that, I would just have to get with Rosie to see when something else could be scheduled. So it is actually 3 minutes after 7 now. I would really like for you all to think, to see, and even if you can't, to come back after, because if you get your information together and put everything in writing that we were talking about, and Tawana gets me her list and I will send that to you, we can email that out so people can at least have that, and that might hurry the conversation. But I don't know when else we might be able to meet. But I think that request is still out there to see if you can, because if you're working on it, I don't see, tell me, besides wanting to get it done, what the big rush is that we wouldn't be able to put it off one more until the next one more deferral.
Well, Mark, I don't know
Catherine,
what your timeline was to move forward, but we can't move into like the revised, the final grading plans until we are sure that we've gotten approved preliminary. So
okay, yeah.
we'll have more and better information as we get further into the design. So this is just the first conversation. So I think, if Mark can go out with Tawana and have more, information that we could respond to, I think it's possible that we may all be on the same page, and then we could keep moving forward.
That's correct. I think a lot of the complicated things that Tawana was referring to, like offsite traffic, et cetera, will be addressed in the TIA, and that will that will determine the permitting of the site as we actually move through construction documents and obtain building permits. At this point, what we're talking about is really just the horizontal geometry that was approved and modifying that to save trees. We're not changing anything with the entitlements that would affect traffic, et cetera. So I really appreciate the input. I think there was valuable input today, and I look forward to walking the site with Tawana and incorporating her comments into our plan. But as far as moving forward with this process, I think we can do both at the same time. Walk and chew bubble gum, so to speak.
Except
I
that
will
we're
look-
trying to we're trying to get all this done along with the other community projects we have before the 10th. That's where the problem comes. And if the community isn't satisfied by the 10th, then they'll, be firing off letters to planning and stuff. I really want us to have it taken care of before it goes to planning again, because those things aren't fun for anybody when people aren't happy.
Okay, well, I understand that. I have to coordinate with my team. So, we've committed to a timeline, and I need to coordinate with my team on that. So I can't unilaterally make that call.
Understood.
Okay, great. Coordinate with them, let us know. And what I would do is seriously look to see, because I understand that you all want to get underway with this. But if it's not a dead timeline where you just have to start it right then, believe me, it's better when the community agrees with what's going on and is supportive of it. So let us know what's up. And it is now like 7 minutes after 7. Does anyone else have a big question with this that they didn't get answered, that they can ask like in 2 seconds?
I
Okay,
think we're here in Tawana's other meeting.
yeah, I think that's just
I'm sorry.
No, you're
conversation. That's
fine.
okay. That's conversation in the back that I hear.
But
Yeah.
y'all
So,
do have
I
a
just-
homeless camp on your site as well, just FYI, that just reminded me.
I want to remind you that we do have another meeting, community meeting on the 3rd of February, which is going to be a very important one. It talks about a development that wants to go up on the edge down there near Carruthers Farms. So that'll be a good meeting, and I hope you can join that. And again, if you are on this, but you did not get an email about it, contact Roseanne.hayes@nashville.gov to give her your contact information so you can be put in the database, and you will get the information about the different meetings and how to get on the meetings and that type of thing. All right, I am going to get ready to turn her off then, I guess. Thank you, everybody. Look forward
you.
to hearing you more about that. I won't
Thank
be
you
able
all.
to meet with you all on Tuesday, Tawana, according to my schedule. I'm so sorry, but I'm happy for those that can. Thank you all very much. Have a good night.
Y'all be
You
safe.
too.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Bye-bye.